Is I really like the visual. Sorry, Stephen A. Real quick, just being Monday morning quarterback here, I like the visual way better on the big board. I'm just letting you know. There's a little tension.
Well, that's why I mentioned that this should have happened the first time. So I'm glad that he got the big board, and it looks very very good.
Did you see it this time?
Props to you. It was very good. JJ Redick, it was very good.
Now go ahead, Stephen A. You're fine. Sorry to interrupt you. I just had to say
that's number one. But number two, JJ Redick, with all due respect, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with you because as you have educated us on many, many occasions, we ain't the coach of a team. If Mike Malone says it's effort, then damn it, it's effort. Okay? And that's what we're going to go with. Now, that's not to say that what you highlighted was wrong, but the fact of the matter is the coach brought out effort for a reason. And I'm going to sit up there and I'm going to throw out a word that, I think you know the definition of it. You're being the brilliant man that you are. And I know KP knows the word as well. And I'm going to say it. I think the word arrogance comes into play. Now, I would know no such thing about those words. I would know no such thing about arrogance. But I will tell you that the Denver Nuggets, I think that's the word that comes into play. And here's why, in all seriousness, fellas, when you went up against, I'm watching and I'm juxtaposing them against the Los Angeles Lakers compared to them against Miami. They beat the Lakers in game one. Anthony Davis drops 40, but Jokic has a triple-double, 36, 21, and 14. He's absolutely phenomenal, particularly in the first half of that game. He puts on the show, and Mike Malone comes into the press conference lamenting how everybody's talking about what the Lakers need to do to win game two, as opposed to pointing out what Denver did to win game one. They clearly had a chip on their shoulders. Everybody was talking about Tinseltown. They knew people like myself and others were fantasizing about being in Tinseltown rather than Denver, Colorado. And it fed into this chip that they've had on their shoulders for the vast majority of this season that I believe has served a role in propelling them to this point. And so you get that done. Not only do you get it done, you sweep the Los Angeles Lakers. Then you transition to the NBA Finals. Now you're the hunted because you're the prohibitive favorite. Everybody outside of Kendrick Perkins practically believes you're going to win this series, if not literally. You got guys like Jay Williams saying they're going to get swept. The Miami Heat are going to get swept. They're not even going to win a game. There is something to be said about being that favorites, making sure you knock off a giant that everybody was looking at and saying, okay, Tinseltown, LA, that's where everybody wants to be. It's LeBron James, it's Anthony Davis, and all of this other stuff. After beating Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. And you say to yourself, okay, we've done what we've done. Now we're the favorites. We know we could take these boys. And you might have let your foot off the gas. I think we saw Mike Malone going off the way that he did because he knows what his team is capable of. He knows they didn't play up to snuff. And in all likelihood, that didn't happen because they kind of took the Miami Heat for granted and they needed a wake-up call. That is my summation of what transpired last night to some degree. Not disagreeing with the plays that you pointed out because they actually happened. I'm just talking about the motivational stuff that he was speaking to. I think that he talked about those things because he recognized his team mentally had a tendency to do what they did last night, which was take their foot off the gas and get burned because of it. That's what I take from it.
Well, first of all, JJ, I love the tape breakdown because you also showed the value of cutting hard for your teammates. And I thought the Miami Heat did an excellent job of cutting hard. May not got the ball, but got somebody a wide open shot. And also, when you cut that hard and you're in there with Duncan Robinson, you have to pay attention because you do have that quick pitch and dribble handoff action with Bam and that guy that's popping back. That's number two. Number three, Michael Malone is calling out his team, but who's calling out Michael Malone? Okay, we talk about how dangerous the two-man game is with Jokic and Jamal Murray, but what happens when that's not going? What happens when Jamal Murray is not going and you do have Jimmy Butler on them, but Jokic do drop 41, and they do start big, and now all of a sudden you taking Aaron Gordon out the game, who are you going to rely on next? And I go back to the bubble, okay? When Michael Porter Jr. actually kind of called out Michael Malone about the offense and said how predictable it is, and I didn't agree with everything what Michael Porter Jr. was saying, but I did understand a little bit where he was coming from. Michael Porter Jr. is 6'10". The only thing that we witness out of him is occasionally he get a cut back door for a dunk off of Jokic, or he's standing and being a spacer. And he's getting the ball in the late shot clock area where he's taking sidestep or step back 3-point shots, which is cool because he can actually shoot the rock. But how about utilizing him being 6'10", and at times he may have a smaller defender on him and saying, you know what, let me see what he could do on the low block. Because I do know this, if a guy feels involved offensively, he's going to give you everything and more on the defensive side of things. So while Mike Malone is sitting up here calling out his teammates, he got to look himself in the mirror as well. Because Eric Spoelstra came in and he had his game plan on point last night on how he wanted to dissect and do things on both ends of the floor. So Michael Malone, I get it. Effort was one thing, but I didn't see too many things Michael Malone did as well. And JJ, you talked about it, bringing Jamal Murray a little bit off the ball, spacing and things to that nature. He got to hold himself accountable. He got to be talking to himself as well, not just his team.
Stephen A., I think this is just a classic example of projection. When you bring up the word arrogance, something doesn't go right, and you're like, it's at least you have self-awareness. I love it, Stephen A.
Me?
I love it.
Okay, I
actually want to disagree with you. Perk talked earlier about the post-game quotes. I really believe you can learn a lot from reading the quotes in between games about a team's mindset, about things they want to clean up. About potential adjustments.
Absolutely.
Everything that I saw coming out of the Denver Nuggets team was a healthy amount of respect, the recognition of how difficult it would be to beat the Miami Heat 4 times. I didn't find the arrogance. I want to bring back up on the effort front. If you watch that second quarter, if you watch the end of the first quarter through the second quarter, Christian Brown flying around, Bruce Brown flying around, Aaron Gordon, this was not an effort game at all to me. There was one guy who looked out of sorts last night. I brought him up. Perk brought him up. He looked out of sorts. You can't allow an off shooting night. I know, because I had these, right? You can't allow an off shooting night to affect your focus and your effort and being in the right spot defensively. And that was a big problem in that second half. Michael Porter Jr. not having a good offensive night, got lost multiple times, one of which was the Jimmy Butler when he stepped on the inbounds and threw it to Gabe Vincent for the 3. Porter Jr. was in no man's land on that play. And the last thing I want to say, because I agree to an extent here with Perk, the fourth quarter, their offense, take away the desperation offensive rebound threes at the end of the game that got him back into it. That 10-minute stretch going against that zone, I don't think the Denver Nuggets have solved the zone. The Heat made the adjustment after game 1. They basically played a 1-3-1 where they put somebody at the foul line to take that area away, and the Nuggets had no answer. There was bad offensive possessions in that fourth quarter.
The couple of things that I want to point out, and I'm going to be very, very serious here when I say this. You can dissect it with a fine-tooth comb the way that y'all both did. And there's no disagreement, but two things can be right at the same time, and I think it's incredibly important to bring that out. As both of you, I don't give a damn what I know, and I know my basketball, but I don't know basketball the way y'all know basketball. Yeah. It's my job. It's too many. These damn people that come up here as reporters and pundits and columnists that sit on national television and radio and beyond and act like they know what actual participants knew is a disservice to the game. And I will never do that to any player or coach. I want to be very, very clear about that. But that still doesn't mean that I don't know some basketball. And I'm looking at what I'm looking at, and I'm getting where y'all coming from. What I would say to you, JJ and Kendrick Perkins, you both know this to be true. Even though you can dissect everything the way that you said and be right on point, you also know you want to avoid bulletin board material. You want to show due deference and respect to the opposition. You want to say some of the right things. And you know a lot of times, not all the time, not most of the times, but a healthy amount of times, there are combatants, participants who actually lie about what they really feel and how much level of respect that they have for an opponent. It's not always the